at? Oh God, I'm gonna die. I gotta get this on camera. No. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Marino Show, and I'm excited to welcome back this guest. Joe Casterline is an actor, musician. I enjoyed speaking with him last time and had to have him back. He has a new film that's coming out, The Gifted, from Strange Film Studios. Joe, thank you so much for coming back to the show. I'm so excited to have you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me back. Anytime. I love talking to you.
Well, I have to say, we were talking offline before this interview started, and I wanted to make sure we got all this on camera. I absolutely loved your role as the priest in this horror film, The Gifted. I really, really, truly feel like it was such a strong, you really portrayed that evil so well.
Yeah.
I want to give you the opportunity, though, just to talk a little about what the film is about, and then we'll dive into your character.
Well, let me preface this just by saying I was raised Catholic and I was an altar boy. And then when I went into the Marine Corps, I was the Catholic liaison in boot camp. So I would say a prayer every night and I'd pick one out, a passage from the Bible. And then I went on and took classes to be a lay Eucharistic minister. So when we were in the field, I would say Mass. So I was holding Mass because for the longest time I thought I had a calling of sorts, and I still do, but I just don't think it's defined the same way. So that part of it helped, that, and that's what August and I talked the most about. What we see in that genre of horror that is the religious horror. When people ask me what my favorite horror is, it's the religious horror, because for Catholics in some religions, that's real possession and things like that. So we kind of went, let's not make this big and poofy. There's something really evil about true religion. That kind of what, like, we see when we see the priest. He's obviously somewhere that he's supposed to be there. Everything is supposed to be there for that reason. So the truth of the matter makes it even worse. So that's August and I really wanted to stay true to the religious side of it, because that adds that little spookier, rather than to go, oh, he's the devil, or, and try to make some kind of visual of it. Just staying right on point. And, that focus of confess. Give me your confession, and then we can get to the next part. And it works really well with Frank's writing.
I mean, are you sure we should do this? This could all be bullshit. I mean, we just made a few mistakes.
He's waiting for you inside.
I made this mess and I dragged you into it for years. We have to do this. I have to do this.
Okay.
We have to get clean.
If you wish for my blessing, you must confess.
Yeah, we're talking about August Aguilar, the director, and then Frank Aguilar, who wrote and produced the film as well. Father, son there.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Dynamic duo.
Yeah. So tell me about the premise of the film.
The premise of the film basically is Miss Ginger Lynn Allen. She plays a young lady by the name of Barbara who was given a special gift by God. And unfortunately, it gets perverted when she's really young by her dad. And then she goes through a series of mishaps and terrible situations using her gift. excuse me. Until after one calamity, she's offered a chance at redemption. The chauffeur shows up and says, "I can take you to a place if you really want to get rid of this, and you can get absolution." And that was the whole thing. Was yes, she did. She wanted to atone. She wanted to lift off that burden of the sins that she had carried. That's why it's with religious horror. It's like these things are all in some sort of reality for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think those are some of the scariest films when it's revolving around, although this isn't an exorcism type film, but
Right.
anything around religion and the darker sides of it that people have experienced, or, there have been real things, especially within the Catholic community. There's a deep belief in evil,
Yeah.
and so the role that you play, as you were saying, it's very subtle. You're not like this big, like loud. It's subtle, but for me, those are the scarier types of villains, I guess you could say, or it's like the serial killer, like the Ted Bundy. On the outside, they look like this clean cut, all American, calm, just
inviting you right in, come into my parlor kind of thing,
and they're even keeled, and you don't see that part of them until it's too late. And so I think for me, when seeing your role and seeing how you portrayed this character, that's what it reminded me of. It was sort of like that, the evil next door that you don't know.
Yeah. Well, the evil that's lurking under the goodness that you went seeking. It's kind of a movie also about be careful of what you wish for.
Yeah.
Kind of that thing, but and I don't want to give anything away, of course, but it is kind of almost like a be careful what you wish for situation.
How did you approach this role, and how did you prepare for it? Because I know you do Shakespeare, you've done numerous other films, and I would imagine that this was a little different than maybe some of the other roles that you played. So how did you approach this specifically, and how did you work with August to sort of bring out the characteristics that both, him and Frank and yourself wanted to portray in this character?
Well, first and foremost, hearing that a talent like Miss Ginger coming on board, I was like, I'm not going to be the one who drops the ball. So I knew I had some work to do. And that bar is like here when Miss Ginger, you're considering, I'm going to get a chance to, I do a lot of sports analogies. So I'm getting in the ring with Miss Ginger, you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be something. And I don't want to be the weakest link. So that kind of got the ball rolling. And like I say, we Miss Rob Link, who is my makeup artist friend from a long time ago, we in one sitting we sat for almost 8 hours and did this, and it was incredible, this devil makeup. And that's kind of where we were like, well, one, you can't just send the crew on to dinner for 8 hours and come back, for the changeover. So we kind of kept thinking about it. And that's where I came up with this saying of that fine line between good and evil. And it's not in the makeup. It's not in let's rubber chicken you with evil. It's this guy who looks beautiful and pristine in his garb. And, that's when you see the movie, it's up to you to actually, because, is he evil? Okay, and we'll visit it after the movie's been out so that we can get some people's response, because that's just it. Is there's something that happens, and and you know you can't say anything without giving anything away. But so knowing Miss Ginger was coming, knew I had to get to work, and then those things like, well, who is he? So obviously he's the leader of this particular flock, right? He's the head of this church. And then I'm like, well, okay, so he is the head of the church, but why is he there? So I came up with this crazy backstory that he was a priest back in like the 14th century. He was kind of one of the druids that started accepting Christianity. And then and then I figured out maybe he got cursed by God to lead this particular flock. People coming with these gifts that need to be corrected, and how we deal with it. And it just kept going, it kept going in there, and the conversations with August and Frank, and we were just like, oh man, yeah. So we ultimately, just in that backstory, I kind of came up with, and it's a story that's been told, but his wife, his partner, perished, and he tried to bring her back using the old druid ways. And then he was cursed for doing that to lead this eternal flock. And they send him to America. And that's kind of weird. And then he's just been there accepting people's confessions, and the flock keeps growing.
That could almost be a movie on its own, like his whole...
Well, that's, of course, I come up with ideas that do that just in case, because August and I, we've talked about that would be amazing to try to get back and do a period piece like that on this guy. But that's kind of, I went to the beach in Carolina one weekend, and I just sat with the acoustic guitar on the beach, and I just started thinking about it. And that's when, he was like he was a crossover from a druid to the first priests, and he did something terrible. Now, what is that terrible that he got thing? And then that's what I was like, he had to have tried to bring somebody back. And that's how he ended up.
What was it like working with Ginger Lynn Allen? Of course, Jennifer Pearl, because those were the scenes that you were mainly in. It was with Jennifer and Ginger. Yeah. So what was it like on the set working with them?
Well, luckily I've worked with Miss Jennifer before in He Comes to Kill. So I knew she was coming ready to put it to the table. And then, and I think, I don't know if it was August or somebody asked in the first, like, you're not going to get distracted or anything and all this. And I'm like, I'm standing here right opposite of Miss Ginger Lynn. Of course I'm going to be distracted. I mean, but we all had a good laugh right then. And then it was get to work. August, when He Comes to Kill, he was like, let's just let it go. Let's go crazy. And he did with the priest. He kept going, hey, I'll let you some leeway. And I was like, no, this is not a character that has any leeway. This guy is locked in, and there's no improvising. It's done because this is a done deal. So with that conviction, I was able to just, you're not going to win. You can't win. It's all, and I was able to just get to work. And Miss Ginger felt that, and then she could give it back. And then, you get that. That's why the scenes get so good, is she's like, oh, and then, and then I got tingles. And then you give it back. And then next thing you know, everybody's like, oh, wow, here we go. So she clicked in because, we met each other maybe the day before and kind of talked about what our expectations and things were, but you never know until you get there, and you get on set. But right from the get-go, and like I say, that behind the scenes was, I'm not dropping the ball. I'm gonna, we're we're gonna score a touchdown here. Miss Ginger's gonna throw the pass, and I'll be that tight end that catches that catches the touchdown pass.
What I know that August has talked about, and Frank has talked about this publicly, that they're going to be working on the prequel to The Gifted. So, are you excited about working on that as well?
Yeah, oh man, like I say, as an actor, they're giving me a chance and they're offering a lot. So I just couldn't live with myself if I didn't do everything I could to make sure, uh, you know, they've stuck their necks out a bit for me to believe in some of the things. Like I say, but it goes back to He Comes to Kill, and just answering, August had just put a thing out. Hey, we're always looking to work with new talent and check us out. And I was like, man, I've watched your stuff and I can't wait to jump with you. And then, some fortuitous things happened in He Comes to Kill. And when they approached about the priest, that I went big time squee and was like, oh my gosh. Cause like I say, it is opposite Miss Ginger, of course, and Miss Jennifer. And that in its own is something that, I'll be telling my grandkids about. But as an actor, to just have some real meat, some real scenes, and not that any of them to diminish anything else, but this was on a different level. And August and Frank wanted to be on a different level with Strange Films, and you don't go after a talent like Miss Ginger unless you're ready to keep going. And that's the beautiful thing about the two of them in Strange Films, and why they have such a dedicated family and a lot of fans and friends, because they just keep reaching for the stars.
On another note, though, speaking of notes, you are also a musician, and you just recently put some new music out. So talk to me about like your musical journey and what that's like. I'm going to play a clip of it during the interview here, but how did you get involved in music? We touched on some of that last time with your education, but what is your music like? What would you describe it if it can be categorized into a genre?
I kind of call it punkabilly. Punkabilly, it's kind of socially aware, and there's some storytelling in it, and I try to make it mean something. But as a altar boy who was a big Kiss fan back in the early '70s, you had to live vicariously through your bands. So I loved all the good metal bands and things like that, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write the next great metal song. But when I went to the table, all my songs kind of come out like, hey man, it'll be okay. It's this kind of groovy little thing. And it's a thing like I've never really been taught. So I don't really know musical theory or anything like that. I'm sure that would help a lot, but working with people is where I get that part. You work like with this latest one I just put up, Knoxville. I worked with a good friend of mine, Alex Harrelson, and he's a great musician in his own right, and he does sound on some big films. He's a big film sound guy. So we had worked together on a couple of projects, and he reached out and said, hey, I got a new studio in my home. Would you like to come in? And, you take your friends up on those things. And so we went in and we worked on this, and we found a really cool, fun thing. And, that's kind of, if you've seen, what was it? Gosh, now I can't think of the movie with Bridges there as he plays the old country rocker, Crazy Heart. Crazy Heart. That's kind of, I want to jump in a van on like a Wednesday and play up and down the East Coast, come home on a Monday, and just kind of play. that would be my ideal remaining years, is just kind of drifting around, playing tunes and making movies.
Oh, calling that Southern 908. Hopped a rail outside of Boston. Got 4 days to get to Tennessee. Angel Lee is set to marry, but her marriage plans, they don't include me. But don't you see, I gotta get to Knoxville. First night out, I rolled alone. Hide my universe.
Well, I think, you were saying earlier it would help if you had more like music background, but I think there are a lot of musicians out there that don't necessarily have the music theory behind them. They're just really good at playing, and some of them don't even know how to read music, and that's okay too. I think to me, like a good song or a good musician, they just make you feel something through their music. They don't even have to have like the best voice in the world. Although your voice is really good, but music
you.
to me, there's so many different styles in music that if it makes you feel something, that to me is what I love about, music in general. It's
Yeah.
it's the
That's
word.
yeah, that's where you get it, because when you're just first starting out with these endeavors and you go, hey man, I'm gonna write my own music and I'm gonna play, and your kind of circle goes, well, you can't sing like that, and you're like, well, I'm not gonna sing like that, I'm gonna sing my own stuff. So you just kind of got to get over a little bit to kick it in the butt and get it going, because it seems like and I'm sure you may have felt it because you used to be a news guy.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, this is what I'm going to do. I want to get out and branch into this. There had to have been people who go, oh man, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know, David.
I remember it was when I was in college, and it was an unexpected turn, but I happened to be voicing something that day, and my professor heard me voicing, like doing my voice, and she came out, she goes, oh my gosh, you could do this. Like, I didn't even know I could do it. And then I got into it. I like everyone, you study, you get better at your craft, you take it seriously. But yeah, I definitely don't think people who knew me would have ever thought that was a direction I was going to go. So I love that you said that, because you can't let other people's idea of who you are define what you do, especially in any sort of creative endeavor.
Yeah, I remember having my youngest child was listening to one of the songs I just done, and she was like, is there piano in that? And I was like, yep. And she goes, you don't play piano? And I go, nope, but it doesn't stop me, because you can look up the chords. If you know your guitar pattern is this way, then you look up the chords, and then you get good at the little fill you're doing, and then you can put it in. That's my hero, my greatest musical Prince. He was the first one who you heard about this, and it made, I guess, tangible sense that you were blown away when they said he played all the instruments on the album. Because right away you go, at once? How the hell do you do that? But then education sets in and you go, oh, he played this one on this track, and then he played that one on that track, and there's multi-tracks, and that's how you put your whole album together. So a lot of times I go to the basement like a mad scientist, and you go, oh man, I think that would love this. So you just go, okay, I'm playing an E minor, G, C, D thing. So you look it up on the piano, and you just, you keep going, and you just work it, and then you get good with the line and record it.
Have you had an opportunity yet to fuse the music side of your life with the film side of it?
In a couple of different things. I just shared, we did a 1 minute film challenge, of continuous shot 1 minute film challenge. And that was our premise of this rocker who had kind of alcohol and drugged out, but it was his first show back. So it kind of follows the lady from the house going in, following her into the dressing room, and then he come, hey, and everybody's wishing him well. So there's been a couple of short films that have used songs of mine, and I do love that, because it's just like way back in my college days, which was way more theater, of course. I kind of made that pact with myself. If I couldn't be in the show, I'm going to make sure it happens. Whatever I've got to do to help the show get on. And that's the same kind of mentality with the music. So I just kind of keep going. And then you keep meeting great people like yourself and August and Frank. And you just, and age is a relative thing, especially nowadays. Nowadays when you have more control over how much you want to do. And if you don't get that much done, then that's on you. If you want to keep, sky's the limit.
So we've got The Gifted done. There'll be a prequel. Are there any other films that you have coming out, or anything that you're looking forward to working on?
Yes, there's a beautiful film coming out of Knoxville. A friend of mine, Crew Smith, he wrote it and directed it, and it's got a lot of Knoxville's A-listers. It's called Angel of Light, and it's got religious overtones of miracles, but in the good side of it in this one. And that's a pretty big film for here in Knoxville. Like I say, it was a lot of good, a lot of great actors from the scene here in Knoxville, and that's going to do some big things too. Angel of Light. There's some the trailers just come out,
So if people want to, find your music, or we've talked before about other films, but where can they find you on social media if they want to follow you, or where can we find your music also?
I have a lot of things kind of just recorded. Like I say, I'm not really a huge kind of thing deal that has a lot of things together. And like my Facebook page, just look me up on Facebook, Joe Casterline. I don't have an actor's page because I don't really see two different people. I just, hey, this is what I'm doing now. And, that's kind of where it is. So it's Joe Casterline on Facebook, or you can look Joe Casterline up on YouTube.
Calling that Southern 908.